Welcome to our deep dive into the evidence, or lack thereof, for the Loch Ness Monster. We're going to look at accounts going back centuries and examine what makes this legend so enduring.
It's fascinating how a story about a creature in a lake in Scotland can capture the imagination of people all over the world.
It really is. And it's not just a recent phenomenon either. We're talking about stories that date back to 565 AD, with the story of St. Columba and his supposed encounter with a water beast in the River Ness.
Right. That account by St. Columba's biographer is considered the earliest written record we have of a creature in the area. It's probably been embellished over time, but it's interesting how it fits into the common narratives from that period. Those stories of humans confronting the unknown.
Right, like facing down a sea monster.
Exactly. And it's often tied to divine intervention as well, as if to explain the unexplainable.
Like a higher power stepping in to protect humanity from these mysterious forces.
Precisely. And even beyond St. Columba's account, there are other mentions in local histories. Sightings from the late 1800s, they show that this belief in something lurking in Loch Ness goes way back.
So it's like this idea was simmering for centuries, just waiting for the right moment to really take hold.
Exactly. And that moment seems to have arrived in 1933.
What happened in 1933 that changed things so dramatically?
Well, a new road was built along the A82, which made it much more accessible to tourists. And with more eyes on the water came a surge of reported sightings.
More people, more potential witnesses.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just the sheer number of sightings, it was the descriptions that started to capture people's imaginations. One of the earliest sightings from that year was from a woman named Aldi Mackay, who claimed to have seen this massive creature rolling and plunging in the water.
Her reaction was particularly striking. It wasn't just a casual observation. She was quite shaken by what she saw.
Oh, wow. So it really had an impact on her.
It did, which lends a certain weight to her account.
Right? It wasn't just a fleeting glimpse. She clearly saw something that left a strong impression on her.
Exactly. And then just a few months later, you have the encounter that really propelled Nessie into the global spotlight.
That's the George Spicer sighting, right? The one where he and his wife claimed to see this long-necked creature crossing the road in front of their car.
It's a vivid image, and Spicer's description of this creature with its long neck and its almost reptilian movements really captured the public's imagination.
You can see how that would spark people's interest.
Absolutely. It fed into this emerging idea of what the Loch Ness Monster could be, something prehistoric, something that defied explanation.
And of course, this all coincided with the rise of photography, which meant that instead of just word-of-mouth accounts, now you had images that claimed to show Nessie.
Right. And two photographs in particular became iconic, even though they've since been debunked.
Oh, you're talking about the blurry one from 1933, and then the one that looks like a long neck coming out of the water.
Exactly. Hugh Gray's photo from 1933, which is notoriously blurry. And then the infamous surgeon's photograph from 1934.
So let's start with the blurry one, Gray's photo. There's a theory that it's not a monster at all, but just his dog fetching a stick from the loch.
It's possible. It does highlight how difficult it is to interpret these grainy images, especially given the conditions on the loch.
Right, with the murky water and the often changing weather.
Precisely. Otters and swans have also been suggested as possibilities for what Gray might have captured.
Okay, so maybe just a case of mistaken identity. But the surgeon's photograph, that's a whole different story. I mean, that one really made people believe. It shows this long neck rising gracefully out of the water.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was supposedly taken by a reputable London doctor, well, that added a layer of credibility.
And that's what makes this photograph so interesting, not just as a piece of potential evidence, but as a cultural artifact. It reveals how much we want to believe, how a single image can shape our perceptions, and how easily we can be fooled.
Even by a well-crafted hoax. Wait, so you're saying the surgeon's photograph was a fake?
So it was. It wasn't revealed as a hoax until 1994, which means it fooled people for over 60 years.
Wow. So how did they pull that off back then?
Well, the monster in the photograph was actually a toy submarine with a sculpted head and neck made of wood putty.
A toy submarine?
Yes! The whole scheme was orchestrated by a man named M.A. Wetherill, who had been publicly humiliated for a previous Loch Ness Monster hoax involving fake footprints.
So he was seeking revenge.
It seems that way.
And what about the surgeon? Was he in on it too?
Absolutely. He was a friend of one of the hoaxers, and he agreed to present the photograph as his own to give it more weight.
So it was all a big elaborate deception?
It was, and it's a reminder that not all evidence is created equal, and that sometimes the desire for fame or revenge can lead to elaborate deception.
That's a good point. But even with the photos being debunked, people didn't give up on finding Nessie, did they?
No, they didn't. They started looking for more scientific proof, like using sonar.
Sonar, that's like underwater radar, right?
It is. It sends out sound waves and then measures how they bounce back to detect objects.
And there were some intriguing sonar readings in the 1950s that seemed to show large moving objects deep in the loch.
That's right. Initially, there was a lot of excitement about sonar as a tool for finally proving Nessie's existence.
It seems like it would be pretty convincing evidence if you're picking up these large shapes moving around in the depths.
You would think so, but it's not as straightforward as it seems.
What do you mean?
Well, Loch Ness is an incredibly challenging environment. It's incredibly deep, over 700 feet at its deepest point, and the water is murky with low visibility.
So it's not exactly easy to see what's down there.
Not at all. And that means there's a lot of potential for interference and misinterpretation with sonar. Schools of fish, unusual rock formations, even temperature gradients can create sonar readings that could be mistaken for something more mysterious.
So you're saying that even with sonar, there's room for doubt.
There is.
It's not necessarily a slam dunk for proving Nessie exists.
That's right. And we see the same pattern with other attempts to capture evidence, like the film footage taken by Tim Dinsdale in 1960.
What did that footage show?
It was initially thought to show a dark hump creating a wake as it moved across the loch. But later analysis suggested it was most likely just a boat under poor lighting conditions.
So again, a possible case of misinterpretation.
Exactly.
It's almost like the more we try to pin down the Loch Ness Monster with technology,
Yeah.
the more elusive it becomes.
There's a certain irony in that, isn't there? But it's also a testament to the enduring power of this mystery, even when faced with scientific explanations. There's a part of us that wants to believe in something more, something beyond our current understanding.
It makes you wonder if there are other avenues of evidence people have explored. I mean, we've talked about photos, sonar film footage. But what about the loch itself? Has anyone ever analyzed the water for clues?
They have. And this brings us to a fairly recent study that has significant implications for the Nessie debate.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
In 2018, a team of scientists conducted a comprehensive DNA survey of Loch Ness.
Wow, so they were looking for genetic evidence of the monster.
Precisely. They collected water samples from various depths and locations, analyzing the genetic material they found to see if there was anything unusual, anything that might point to a large, unidentified creature.
Okay, so this is like a CSI episode, but for Loch Ness. What did they find? Was there any trace of a monster in that water?
Well, they found a lot of eel DNA.
Eel DNA. So
Yeah.
is that it? Is the Loch Ness Monster just a giant eel?
It's certainly a possibility that's gaining traction, especially after this DNA analysis. They didn't find any evidence of large fish, reptiles, or marine mammals that could easily be mistaken for a monster.
So the eel theory is the most likely explanation based on the evidence we have.
It seems that way.
But how big are we talking? I mean, a regular eel isn't exactly going to strike fear into anyone's heart.
That's true. Most people picture something a lot more menacing when they think of Nessie. But remember, we're talking about a loch with extremely low visibility. It's dark, deep, and full of peat, which makes the water murky. Imagine you're a visitor eager to catch a glimpse of the monster, and you see a large serpentine shape moving in that murky water.
I can see how that would be unsettling.
Exactly. It's easy to see how your mind might jump to the most exciting conclusion.
Our brains tend to fill in the blanks, especially when we're already primed to see something specific.
Yeah.
But what about those reports of a long neck? Surely, even in murky water, people can tell the difference between an eel and something with a distinct neck, like a plesiosaur?
Not necessarily. There are a couple of possibilities here. Some researchers believe that what people are seeing could be a line of otters swimming together, their bodies creating the illusion of a long neck and head.
Oh, so it's not one creature, but a group of animals.
Exactly. Or it could be birds like cormorants, with their long necks emerging from the water as they dive for fish.
So even those seemingly convincing descriptions might have perfectly normal explanations.
It seems that way.
It's like every time we try to grab hold of the Nessie mystery, it slips through our fingers. Are there any other theories about what people might be seeing, besides misidentification and hoaxes?
Oh, definitely. There have been some pretty creative ideas put forward over the years.
Like what?
Some people have suggested that Nessie could be a type of giant amphibian, perhaps a newt that has evolved to an enormous size.
A giant newt.
Yes. Others have even proposed that it could be a giant invertebrate, Something like a massive bristle worm?
A giant worm.
It's a possibility.
I'm guessing there's not a lot of scientific evidence to support those ideas.
Not particularly. There's also the idea that what people are seeing aren't animals at all,
Yeah.
but rather unusual wave patterns, or even seismic gas bubbling up from the fault line that runs beneath the loch.
So you're saying that earthquakes could be creating the illusion of a monster?
It's a theory.
That's an interesting twist.
And then, of course, you can't forget about the folklore aspect. Some believe the sightings are connected to old Scottish legends of kelpies, which are shape-shifting water spirits that often take the form of horses.
So it's possible that these mythical creatures have become intertwined with the real-life mystery of Loch Ness.
It's fascinating how those myths and stories intertwine with the mystery of Loch Ness.
It adds a whole other layer to the story, doesn't it?
It does.
It makes you realize that our fascination with the unknown isn't just about scientific curiosity, but also about our deep-seated need to explain the world around us, even if those explanations sometimes venture into the realm of the supernatural. But let's be honest, the most enduring image of Nessie is that of a plesiosaur, a prehistoric marine reptile thought to be extinct. Is there any chance that something like that could actually exist in Loch Ness?
It's a captivating idea, and it's a theory that many cryptozoologists cling to.
Cryptozoologists.
Yes, those who study hidden or unknown animals, they argue that Loch Ness is ancient, formed millions of years ago, and that it's possible a population of plesiosaurs could have survived there, hidden from the outside world.
So like a lost world scenario?
Exactly.
But there are some major challenges to this theory, right?
There are.
Like what makes it so unlikely that a plesiosaur could be living in Loch Ness today?
Well, for starters, plesiosaurs were marine reptiles, meaning they lived in saltwater environments. Loch Ness is a freshwater lake, and while some have suggested that a plesiosaur could have adapted to freshwater over time, it's not a scenario that has much scientific support.
That makes sense. Plus, wouldn't a creature that size need to surface for air regularly? It seems like it would be hard to stay hidden in a lake that gets so much attention.
Exactly. And there's also the issue of food supply. A plesiosaur would need a significant amount of prey to survive. And while Loch Ness has a healthy ecosystem, it's debatable whether it could sustain a large predatory reptile over a long period of time.
So while the idea of a plesiosaur in Loch Ness is exciting, the evidence just doesn't add up.
I'm afraid not.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at photos, sonar film footage, even analyzed the DNA of the loch itself. And yet the mystery persists. What's your take on all this? Is there any one piece of evidence that stands out as particularly compelling or convincing?
That's the thing about the Loch Ness Monster, isn't it? There's no smoking gun. No definitive proof that settles the debate once and for all. You have these tantalizing glimpses, these anecdotal accounts that hint at something extraordinary, but nothing concrete enough to satisfy scientific scrutiny.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle with some pieces missing, and maybe some that don't even belong. But even without that definitive proof, people continue to be drawn to the Loch Ness Monster. Why do you think that is? What is it about this mystery that continues to capture our imaginations?
I think it speaks to our innate curiosity, our desire to believe there are still mysteries in the world waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah, like there are still things out there that we don't fully understand.
Exactly. And Loch Ness, with its depth and murky waters, it represents that kind of unexplored frontier, a place where the imagination can run wild.
It's true. There's something alluring about the unknown. That sense of wonder that comes from contemplating the possibility of something extraordinary lurking just beyond our reach. And Loch Ness Monster has become more than just a creature. It's a symbol, an icon of this enduring human fascination with the unexplained.
Absolutely. It's woven itself into popular culture, appearing in books, films, even video games. It's become a global phenomenon, attracting tourists and researchers from all corners of the world, all hoping to catch a glimpse of Nessie or to contribute to solving the puzzle.
And it's not just about finding the answer, is it? It's about the journey, the process of exploration and discovery. We've learned so much about Loch Ness itself, its geology, its ecosystem, all because of this enduring quest for the monster.
That's a great point. It's spurred scientific inquiry, technological innovation, and even sparked debates about the nature of evidence and belief. It shows how a single mystery can ignite a passion for learning and exploration that extends far beyond the initial question.
I think that's one of the most valuable takeaways from this deep dive. The Loch Ness Monster, whether real or imagined, has pushed us to look closer to question our assumptions and to appreciate the complexity of the natural world. And even if we never find definitive proof, the search itself has been incredibly enriching.
And who knows, maybe someday with new technologies or a stroke of luck, we'll finally have that irrefutable evidence that either confirms or denies Nessie's existence once and for all.
That would be amazing.
But until then, the legend continues to remind us that there's still a sense of wonder to be found in the world, a sense of mystery that sparks our curiosity and keeps us exploring.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the Loch Ness Monster evidence. We've examined centuries of sightings, from ancient accounts to modern-day encounters, and explored the various explanations, from misidentification to hoaxes to the possibility of a hidden creature. But we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We've talked about the lack of conclusive proof, the challenges of interpreting evidence, and the allure of the unknown. But considering all that, do you think the enduring belief in the Loch Ness Monster says more about the creature itself, or about our own human need to believe in something bigger, something beyond the ordinary? We'll leave that question for you to contemplate. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries that surround us.
I think it really speaks to our innate curiosity, that desire to believe there are still mysteries in the world waiting to be uncovered.
Right, like there's still things out there that we don't fully understand.
Exactly. And Loch Ness, with its depth and murky waters, it kind of represents this unexplored frontier, like a place where the imagination can run wild.
It's true. There's something alluring about the unknown. That sense of wonder when you contemplate the possibility of something extraordinary lurking just beyond our reach. And the Loch Ness Monster, it's become more than just a creature. It's like a symbol, an icon of this human fascination with the unexplained.
Absolutely. It's woven itself into pop culture, It's in books, films, even video games.
Yeah, it's everybody.
It's become this global phenomenon, attracting tourists and researchers from all over. They're all hoping to catch a glimpse of Nessie or to contribute to solving the puzzle.
And it's not just about finding the answer, is it? It's about the journey, the process of exploration and discovery.
Right.
We've learned so much about Loch Ness itself, its geology, its ecosystem, all because of this quest for the monster.
That's a great point. It's spurred scientific inquiry, technological innovation, and even sparked debates about the nature of evidence and belief.
Wow.
It shows how one mystery can ignite a passion for learning and exploration. It goes way beyond that initial question.
I think that's one of the most valuable takeaways from this deep dive. The Loch Ness Monster, real or imagined, it's pushed us to look closer, to question what we think we know, and to appreciate the complexity of the natural world. Even if we never find definitive proof, the search itself has been incredibly enriching.
And who knows, maybe someday with new technology or just a stroke of luck, we'll finally have that irrefutable evidence. The evidence that either confirms or denies Nessie's existence once and for all.
That would be incredible.
But until then, the legend continues. It reminds us that there's still a sense of wonder in the world, a sense of mystery that sparks our curiosity and keeps us exploring.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the evidence for the Loch Ness Monster. We've looked at centuries of sightings, from ancient accounts to those modern-day encounters, and we explored the various explanations, everything from simple misidentification to elaborate hoaxes to the possibility of a hidden creature. But we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We've talked about the lack of conclusive proof, the challenges of interpreting evidence, and the allure of the unknown. But considering all that, do you think the enduring belief in the Loch Ness Monster says more about the creature itself, or about our human need to believe in something bigger, something beyond the ordinary? We'll leave you with that question. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries that surround us.